Harold Reber, CTO and co-founder of Atlas. It's a privilege to have you on the Geospatial Index.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get straight into it. So what's the elevator pitch for Atlas?
So in Atlas, we are creating full stack GIS. So we want to create a platform where you can create a map from the start to the end, all the way from data management and to the visualization and building geospatial applications, and everything in between, like automations and integrations, all of that stuff. So we want it to be like, when you think about maps, you think about Atlas, and if you want to create a map, you go into Atlas, and if you want to consume a map, you go to Atlas. So it's kind of a big vision, but we really think it's needed in this world to have kind of the quick and easy tool. So that's what we have set out to create.
Awesome. Okay, so guests who've been listening to the show for a while will be, I guess, familiar with this kind of a concept. And market land grab from the episodes with Felt and GIS Carter. So very happy to be profiling you in the same sort of niche. Speaking of which, could you give us a bit of detail on the niche that you dominate?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an approach where, because it's so broad, right, to say that we're doing full stack GIS, and how do you connect that to niches? It can kind of be a difficult question. So we have looked at a lot of similar companies that have had the same kind of issues, like Airtable or Figma and all of these companies that we aspire to be like, because we think they're doing the same as we're doing, in just in different spaces. So we have kind of taken a similar approach to what they're doing, which is we understand who needs us the most right now, who is having the biggest problems creating maps and the most valuable problems creating maps. And then we focus on solving their needs fully well and understanding the needs super well before we move on to new use cases. So we worked a lot within real estate and renewables. That's where we're incredibly good. And that's where we have customers that say to us, we actually had one customer last week that told us that the best thing that happened to their company this year was Atlas. And the guy that bought Atlas, he got a super well review, better than he has ever had before, just because he started using us, because now it's super quick for them to find their ideal sites for solar. And when you kind of get those kind of feedbacks, I just get goosebumps, because it just takes me it just takes me a memory lane back to the long process it has been to even create something like this.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So nice to hear. So yeah, popular markets. We've definitely had a few episodes about real estate tools. One that springs to mind is Realty Dynamics in Tampa. So yeah, also nice to begin to fill out that niche a bit more with this profile of Atlas here. Okay, so there you've already started to talk about profiling customers. So that brings us to the next question nicely. Who is your ideal customer, and how do you ensure you're always working backward from their needs?
So I think our ideal customer is anybody that cares a lot about maps, and typically anybody that it's typically B2B people we've been working closely with now, as of now, but going forward doesn't even have to be. So it's typically anybody that are willing to try new tools. We focus more on people that are willing to adapt new technology in the beginning, because it's of course like a barrier to try something new. You might spend some time doing something that's completely worthless. So I totally understand why people don't want to do that. But what we've seen is that that's the one trait that is similar across all of our customers. It doesn't matter like which sector they're in, if they're journalists or if they're real estate agent or whatever, but they need to be kind of willing to adopt new technology and probably have seen the benefits from it before. So they typically use softwares like Notion or Figma or similar, and have some experience in like adapting to a more modern workflow.
Yeah. Okay. You also made a comment before about, because it's all well and good to identify a customer need, but you talked about high value problems. So it'd be interesting to hear a bit more about how an entrepreneur approaches this issue.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's, say, for example, when we started working with renewables, we kind of started with the first principles thinking, where it's like, okay, we saw this incredible graph that the building, actually the cost of solar energy was the lowest across all energy forms. So it's like incredibly cheap to create solar power. It's incredible, right? But still we're having struggle building enough of it. And it was because there's all these regulations that's hard to navigate. It's hard to find the correct land. It takes a lot of time to evaluate it. And there's risks associated with it. And there's financing. And there's all this stuff. And we saw that in the beginning of the prospecting phase, it took like 2 weeks to send some GIS data over email to a consultant and get like a PDF back and do
GIS data over email is the bane of our industry.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Okay, related to this, in the past couple of days, I was having a look around on Google Earth Engine, I think, and I saw like a generative design tool for solar as well. It seems like there's a bit of the beginnings of almost like a machine learning or computational or generative angle using software tools on what's typically thought of as a bespoke engineering design exercise. So yes. Do you sort of fit into that space, and is Google's tool then a threat to you?
I think that it's a very good question. And I think when we have a vision as broad as we have, it's very wise to know what should we integrate and what should we create, right? So I think this is a typical case where, for example, within renewables, we won't have the #1 tool for estimating solar power generation, right? Because there will be some engineering company somewhere that specializes on this and has incredible people with tons of domain knowledge, and we can't beat them all. Like, there's no reason to do it. It's better to join forces and integrate, and that's typically what we would do with something like this.
Okay, yeah, all right. This is all, really interesting and useful insight. Again, how an entrepreneur thinks. I really feel like this is an opportunity for everyone. Great. Okay, so how do you ensure your entire organization is up to date on map making in general?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting dilemma we encountered when we started recruiting a lot of people is that if we were to only hire people with a lot of background within maps, we would limit our talent pool so much. So we're like, okay, let's find incredible engineers. If they have knowledge about maps, that's great. But we need to make them into map geeks, just like we are. We need to make them into somebody that just loves the art of creating maps. So we were like, okay, let's create this company-wide event at Thursdays, which we call Maploration, where we create maps. We just sit around and create maps, and we get the customer to come in with an issue or something they want to build, or like showing us how they use the platform actively, or talking about all these problems, and having like everybody just trying to create the best maps. So it's been a huge success for us. And in the beginning, it was honestly like, okay, we need to make sure everything runs smoothly. So everybody would just need to use the platform extensively to find all the bugs before the customer finds it. And it just kind of turned into this thing where we're just like, this forces everybody to be good at creating maps and trying to push the boundary themselves. And very often this has turned into a thing where you will try to make a certain map and you can't really make it work for some reason or another, and it's not really efficient enough. And then when we go back to the drawing board to decide like what are we going to build next, you'll find everybody just springs up with these ideas. So I think it just trying to create maps makes you so much more creative when it comes to prioritization of what we should build. So I think it just like it makes sure that everybody's aligned around the same goal, which is to make it super simple to work with GIS data and create maps. So it kind of started out as, like a small thing we kind of did, and now it's like, I think very central arena for the entire company to come together.
Yep. Okay. It almost sounds like hackathons, but mapathons.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Cool. All right. Good tip there for managing geospatial organizations in general. Okay. So then what are some examples of how Atlas makes it possible for anyone, from educators to business analysts, to design interactive, professional maps without needing a background in coding or geographic information systems?
Yeah. So,
or as I like to say, information systems about geography. I really don't like the term GIS. Anyway, I'll get off my
No, I think that's a very interesting comment to have it there at the end, and I understand why you say that. But
I'm glad.
uh, well, I think if you are not a professional and if you haven't created a map before, if you haven't worked with GIS data before, then you don't even know what the CRS is. You don't know what the WVMS is. You don't know that you can't use that for analysis, but you can use a TIFF file for an analysis, for example. And just kind of all these things that you as a beginner don't understand. We want to make that super simple. We want to abstract most of it away, and the stuff you can't abstract away, we want to make as simple as possible. So it kind of started with us like seeing how people just fail trying to add data to QGIS. Like it's simple tasks like adding data and getting started. It's like impossible. And then if you want to run a buffer, you need to make sure they both have the same coordinate system and they're all properly aligned. And there's all this stuff you need to do before you can actually do any work. And it's kind of funny because I love QGIS myself because I used it so much. And I think it's incredible that we do have tools like that in our industry, because having open source alternatives, I think it's always necessary, and it's always so important because it forces players like us to do an even better job to make sure that that we're relevant. So I think it was kind of like, wow, we see this huge potential, but we're going to have to make something that's great. We can't make something that's, like 70% there. It needs to be radically different, and it needs to be radically simpler and more powerful. So that's kind of like what we set out to do. And I think that's what kind of sets us apart, is that we kind of just looked at all the learnings from QGIS and ArcGIS and Google Earth from the past. And we were like, if they would make this from scratch in 2024,
yes,
with the learnings we have from Notion, from Figma, from all of these platforms that have succeeded, what would it look like? And that's what we set out to build.
Yeah. Okay. So have you an example from a classroom or a university? I'm looking for education context where a lecturer or a teacher used Atlas to make a map.
Yeah, absolutely. So the earliest examples are to understand how you can do GIS analysis to get like a very easy entry to it. For example, if you want to do the most simple operations like buffers, like overlays, like merging layers together, doing all of this stuff, being able for them to be in the same map as their students, and being able to see what the students are doing live, and for the students to even be able to leave comments directly in the map and work together in this way and see each other cursors, and being able to. I was going to say,
because you can see the cursors going around it's like a interactive whiteboard session.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we saw the huge power of education, and also it was kind of funny because we randomly saw that we had use in, I don't remember, I think it was in Nigeria, we suddenly had a lot of usage, and we dived into it and was like, oh, it's being used for educational purposes. And we kind of just dug much deeper into it and kind of understood that they just come across this tool and just thought it was better. So these type of things is maybe what I think is most interesting about my job, is when I build something, a tool, with my intention and purposes, and then somebody just runs away with it with their own like purposes and thoughts about it, and they enjoy it and want to use it entirely differently than what I thought, because it just challenges my own thinking, and it just makes me honestly super proud of my team to see that that's possible. It's kind of like a dream for an entrepreneur, I think, and when it happens, it just makes you so incredibly happy.
Yeah. Nothing like organic growth in probably a continent and a country that maybe you've never visited. And just to see something flowering there. Yeah, really amazing. Okay, so then we touched on real estate before. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So in a post about Atlas for real estate, site selections mentioned, zoning, demographic and infrastructure data are flagged as constraints. elsewhere, Atlas documentation mentions heat maps using point data. So
Yeah.
in my episode with the aforementioned Realty Dynamics, we discussed site selection using heat maps for real estate as well. This was about going further with heat maps by using any type of data, not just points. Additionally, I called for a step to assign individual weights to constraints and allow decisions on cell sizes. Atlas is about replacing geospatial analysts. What plans do you have to replace them in doing this work?
Yeah, so I think this use case is of course like more complex than your entry level, I guess, GIS operations. And we're sometimes we're a bit hesitant to create too many custom analysis because we want it to be, if we have too much depth, I think it just makes it confusing for customers. But this is where we have seen it's kind of in the same area as multi-criteria decision analysis and being able to make these H3 bins or whatever bins you want to make with different weightings. And we've kind of seen that that's one of the things that's not natural right now to do in our platform. So it's something that's in the works, and it will 100% come out, but we're just thinking it through how it should look, because we also think historically that has been more complex than we think it needs to be. So it's kind of like on the design drawing board, and we're kind of dawdling about it quite a bit and trying to be creative with it. But I think you're totally right, and it's very interesting that you mention it, because this has actually been one of the things we have been discussing the most internally, how to solve when it comes to analysis, because it's like so many people need to do that, to have like a MCDA or
it's
something.
Such a common type of analysis that a geospatial. But again, we're coming back to an important theme that you mentioned at the beginning, that an entrepreneur must look at solving the valuable problems, not just problems. So is the message that at the moment it's actually not a valuable problem? It might be a big problem, but it's not a valuable problem to your organization to solve. Like it won't give you more customers.
I think it's more of a thing where without it, we can solve maybe 75% of a company's needs. And with it, maybe we're at 80, 85, 82 or something. And then it kind of depends. Like sometimes it's critical for the customer to make a buying decision. Sometimes it's not. And it's also a situation where we're just super fortunate that we have a long list of things that are actually valuable to build. And it's a lot of just like prioritizing and figuring out how to sequence it properly, so we can continuously capture a market while we're doing the building.
Yeah, so it also makes me think that perhaps there's still, amongst the emergence of all of these tools like yours, there's still a place for a geospatial analyst that can be hired as a consultant to do these more complex analyses, perhaps.
I think there will always be a place for geospatial analysis. And I think when you think about like how we view Atlas, it's kind of like you have Google Earth, which is great for visualization, but there's no analysis. And then you have ArcGIS and QGIS, which is super great for analysis, but not like accessible.
You need a 4-year degree and maybe a master's on top to actually drive it. Yeah.
And then
so
nothing in the middle.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like nothing in the middle. And we're like, let's bridge the gap. Let's make it simple for people without a professional background in GIS to create maps. And let's make it simple for them to work with GIS specialists, so they don't have to have this back and forth over email, and the one source of truth is Outlook and all of this like weird stuff that we have unfortunately gotten used to. So it's kind of like,
I love it.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like there's a bunch of low-hanging analytical fruit that you're basically just ticking off. And actually it makes geospatial analysts' lives better, because it's frustrating to deal with all these basic analyses all the time. So yeah, a tool like this is welcome. All right, so then regarding open source, why has GIS had an increase in innovation in recent years?
Yeah, so I think I think open source GIS has become quite powerful, and it's kind of interesting to look at the history there, because you have tools like GDAL. Is that how you pronounce it? I've always wondered that. GDAL, is that how you pronounce it?
I've always thought it was GDAL as well. I don't know. Okay, I was actually thinking over the weekend, because someone on Bluesky said that geospatial in the end at the bottom is GDAL. Everything is GDAL. But I realized then that I don't know what that acronym means.
It's Geospatial something library. I don't remember it either.
Library.
probably something like that. I don't. But even GDAL also has something called OGR, so it's kind of just like a collection of libraries that has become what everything runs on. So PostGIS runs on it. Like all the Python libraries, for example, runs on it. Every Java library typically runs on it, and there are some people that are actually trying to do something about it. But yeah, it's basically GDAL all the way down, which is kind of insane. But I think when you do have tools like this, and especially now when you have more, I would say, modern tools available too, then it becomes possible for people like me to do innovative stuff that's more customer facing on top of it. So one example which I'm super excited about is Parquet files and PM tiles. Yeah, GeoParquet is like incredible. It's incredible technology, and it's like these old map servers, for example, they're typically like if you look at map server or you look at the Geo server, it's for static data. It's for hosting your internal static data and update it, every once in a while. But it's not for dynamic data that's continuously updated and worked on together. But these formats just makes that possible in an entirely new way and at scale too, not just for, like a small org. So sometimes I just feel super blessed that we're in an industry where there's so many individuals that give their time and their craft and their genius to create great tools that allows for innovation. And there are certain individuals that I think are incredible at this. For example, I mentioned this on the GeoMob podcast actually earlier. Kyle Barron, I met him in New York half a year ago, and he's one of the most incredible individuals in GIS, in my opinion. He's trying to recreate the GDAL in Rust, which I think is just nuts to, do something like that. And it just makes me happy that we do have people that are doing these things and pushing the boundaries. I mean, another thing is S2 maps. That's challenging MapLibre, challenging Mapbox.
S2 maps?
S2 maps.
Okay, so, that sounds like it's from Amazon.
Yeah, you would think so. But what they're doing is
S3.
Yeah, so they're talking about, so this is actually an earlier Mapbox engineer that was just so frustrated at his job because everything in the Mapbox library is like, it's impossible to fix anything because it's such a huge mess that has accumulated over time, and they just want to rebuild everything. And I'm like, I love you, but you're crazy. So just wish him the best of luck.
Who's doing that?
I don't remember his name, but I'm sure if you Google S2 Maps, you'll find him.
Okay, and I'm always on the hunt for future podcast guests. Kyle Barron.
Yeah, you should have him on.
Yeah, I came across him on Bluesky. Again over the weekend. So yeah, interesting to see how. Once you get to know. Yeah, he's definitely a guy you should reach out to. He'd be super interesting to have on there. Awesome. Okay, so nice to cover off how open source tooling is enabling innovation or speeding it up. So then where is Atlas going in the future in general? How is Atlas going to win within the GIS space?
Yeah. So I think one of the important ways to win is to just make it super simple to create maps. And one of the things you start with there is data. So you have a lot of geospatial data formats that's accessible and you can use it everywhere. But what about the data that's not already wrangled into a shapefile or a geo package or whatever? So we think this is most of the data actually, and a lot of organizations aren't even considering using GIS because they don't see how their data relates to a location. And this is like crazy to us because we of course know the value of being able to make maps. They're incredibly visual. They give an overview immediately. It's a great way to communicate. It's a great way to collaborate. And I think this is one of the important things, is just like make it possible for more people with more data and just make more data available for a GIS world. I think that's incredibly important. And
So as you're going through describing Atlas, I had this feeling that a big part of the challenge for the general public doing geospatial is not mapping or geospatial per se. It's what you said at the beginning about how hard it is just to deal with the data.
Yes.
And perhaps there is a niche there for someone to come, because we already have there's ArcGIS Atlas or Esri Atlas or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. This essentially a web repository of data sources. So I guess Esri has begun to address this. But to me, it seems to be something that people in the Esri ecosystem would use. Perhaps if there could be something that's not locked into one particular platform,
Yeah.
that anybody can, it's like a constantly updated, curated, authoritative, natural Earth-like repository of geospatial data sets that users of Atlas, Felt, GeoScarta, hell, ArcGIS Online, the whole lot. That it's almost like the first step is to get this subscription to this curated data feed. And maybe it is just starting with what's in natural Earth and building on that. And then you get your geospatial engine, be it Atlas or others.
I think you're exactly right. And I think if I were to make a call to action to the open source community in general, or to any entrepreneurs, it's making the data available, and even the free data, just making it simple to get access to and enjoy.
I guess we
think
have
that's
Overture Maps Foundation. Sorry to butt in, but that should be mentioned in this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, Overture is great, and we're super, and same Foursquare just launched their dataset too. And we do need actors like that, but I think even just a simple thing like creating a portal of existing data and just like pointing to it, not even uploading it or creating new data, I think, yeah, something like that would be super valuable too, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to say about the roadmap for Atlas? Are there any new functions that you might like to flag? I'm always looking for breaking news on the show.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so one of the things we actually released last Friday actually is a field tool for the field. So you can take pictures with your phone, and
Awesome.
it's added to it's added to the data table immediately. So you get the point for each, or you can draw polygons, and you can add the information, and you can tag users. And we just wanted to make field work super simple, because we've seen so many people just host QField on you know, some AWS or something just to get access to it. But we're like, this should also be super simple. If you open Atlas on your phone, it should just be the field tool, because that's what most people want when they open it on the phone. That should be super available. Yeah, and it's like it's so incredible, because if you have, say for example, you have like the album on your phone. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just like upload that and just see where everything is located? You can do that on your iPhone. Yeah, you can do that on your phone from before. But maybe if you're a professional, maybe you just want to create that into a data set and create some clusters and some visualizations and add the image as a marker on the map, or just something like that. And we're like, okay, let's make that super simple, because that definitely doesn't exist.
Wow, so I'm going to test out Atlas now. So you're saying that on my iPhone, it will somehow automatically ingest all the geotagged photos as a points layer?
You can upload photos. So you can take a photo, and it will be yeah.
Okay, so one by one, as you use the app to take photos, it will place those as points. Okay.
Yeah, right. But I guess I was pointing a bit to the future there, about how you will see it evolve too.
Yeah, awesome, man. No, nice, perfect. Okay, then. So what, if anything, are your customers saying to you about their AI needs? Critical thinking is welcome.
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to AI. There's many, a lot of them. I would say that the typical uses of AI within the GIS world is, of course, like Earth observation and everything. And we think that's probably not where generative AI, or not as I see it, maybe will make the biggest impact. But I think where we look at it a lot is, can we use it to create new data in the attribute table? So like, you maybe want to just add a new column, that has data based upon your previous fields, and you want to use not an algorithm to create it, but you want to use an AI to create it. I think that's super powerful. And then I think I'm gonna be a bit vaguer, but I think we want to push the boundary too about how you think about user interfaces, and I think that's hugely related to AI too. And some of the most impressive modern online companies I've seen, they do this. They use the AI for more than just a chat box. It's part of the UI, and I think that's that's where I think it's going.
Yeah, I mean, so when ChatGPT was first sort of released a couple of years ago, we began to have a few Geo AI episodes, and a natural language interface was sort of the first way that people were beginning to experiment with it. So yeah, interesting to hear that that theme is developing a bit, I'll say. So, but specifically, has a customer actually come to you and said, hey, we have an AI need. Can you do something? Is that a thing?
I can't recall. I think the closest would probably be some Earth observation thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And there are for sure a lot of needs there, and I think that's kind of what I've seen been explored a lot in the past, but not really anything related to I guess LLMs. I haven't seen any requests that I can recall.
Yeah, I was deliberately sort of flagging critical thinking there because I'm trying to sort of get past the hype. So it's interesting to each episode to have a bit of a pulse check with each entrepreneur that we have on to actually get.
So this is what we've seen, which I think is super interesting. It's that when you create a feature that's related to AI in your product, you will get a lot of hype around it. You will get a lot of people that will try out your product and you think that this is because you're creating value, but then you see that the retention is horrible. And it's because people are excited about AI products, so they want to try any AI product and see, and it needs to be revolutionizing for them to actually use it. It's not like they have a problem and they're looking to solve it. It's more like they're excited and curious, and then the retention is like not great.
But you've just said it right there. It's not like they have a problem and they want to solve it. I mean, I don't want to come across as a cynic, but in the end, we have to make money. And it's very interesting to hear what comes out of the mouth of you, an entrepreneur here. So yeah, all right. Okay, so then finally, if you were to hire an apprentice, what qualities would get them the job?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what I like a lot in, or what I've seen make people succeed is, of course, being very hungry and wanting to try new things, and not being afraid. I think if you can be both hungry and humble, I think that's a fantastic combination, because it's not like you're bulldozing through everybody, but you're still like, you just want to be slightly better all the time. And then if you combine that not only with hunger, but also with curiosity, then I think, like those three together, I think that makes a special person. So I think most of the time I think that a team is somebody that you need to walk a long way with them, and you can't expect them to know everything once they come in, but they need to have the correct traits where they can actually grow together with you. So that's kind of like what I look for when we're doing hiring, or if I were to have an apprentice or something. It's like, do you have these traits? Can I make you grow beyond what you thought were possible? Or can we as an organization make you do that? If you get like these huge challenges, how will you react to them? Because some people, when you just throw them on deep water, they become world athlete swimmers, and they just become incredible at what they do. And some people are more interested in kind of handholding, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But in our organization, we want to give you a huge problem and the freedom to solve it, and that's just kind of how we operate. That's how we need to operate. And I think this is probably something you as an individual should think about when deciding if you want to join a startup or a more established company, because this, to me, is one of the biggest differences. It's like, you'll get the freedom, you'll get the opportunity, you get all of that stuff, but nobody will show you how to do it. You need to figure it out for yourself. And if you want extensive documentation on everything, that's not gonna be here. And if you need that and if you prefer that, then I strongly understand that, because I strongly understand that, but then you probably should choose a different company.
I just love this message. Hungry, humble, and curious. It's just, yeah, to me, that you don't need to say anymore.
Yeah, yeah. It's also like a thing where I find myself thinking a lot about what do I want to be myself, and like what do I care about, and these are things that are important to me, and it's kind of probably how I ended up here. Is that, I want to do difficult things, and I probably want to figure them out myself, but I want to do it together with somebody. I'm not gonna be like a general pointing fingers and like yeah, I want people that are able to do stuff on their own, because that's in the end how we can grow as an organization.
It also, there's a strong message there for leaders, that success as a leader is attending to the factors that cause these three things to be present.
Yes. Yes. And you need to constantly look for them in people.
Sure.
And you need to bring it out
But you need to nurture them.
Yeah, you need to nurture them. You 100% do. And you need to be mindful about these things and understand them. And you need to understand that this is more important than code standard document, or it's more important than...
that those things will come from successfully nurturing and leading on a context where these things can exist.
Honestly, I think it's a first principles thing. It's a very much a first principles thing. So it's like, these are the fundamental pieces that make you into somebody that succeeds in this organization. And then all the other stuff, you can build that on top of it. But
these
you
are the
need
first
to have
principles of achievement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they are.
Love it. All right. Fantastic message to end on. Harold, CTO of Atlas, thanks so much for coming on the Geospatial Index.
Well, thank you so much for having me and asking some great questions. It's been great to be on here.
Appreciate it. All right, mate. Have a good one.
Likewise.
Okay.